Wem.
And I'm Lewis.
This is the Forest School Podcast.
Let's go!
Yeah. Hi. We're out. It's the Indian summer that everyone was hoping would happen, and now it's happening.
Does that mean double summer? That means sunshine and then a tropical bit.
Sunshine in the autumn time. You know, when it's supposed to all be like cooling off, and you're like, okay, it's the autumn time now. It's like, no, have some blazing sun, just to make up for the torrential rain that we've had pretty much the entire summer. But back to school, have some sun.
Yeah, that's nice. Sure, that's nicer than having to. My wife always tells people that we meet who are like, oh, we want to come to the forest school thing. She's like, you need to not start in January. They're like, oh, we're going to do it in the new year. She's like, no. You need to start in either the spring or the autumn.
Do you think that the same thing will happen next kind of February, March, where we brought the water containers from our houses and they froze in the containers during the day? Because that has burned itself on my brain, and it's just good to remember those times when it is like 27 degrees Celsius as it's going to be this week.
I'm doing ice baths now, so I'm going to be doing Wim Hof with the kids.
Okay, excellent. Look forward to that.
I'm going to grow my hair out as well. I'm going to grow the Wim Hof hair.
Are you?
Yeah.
You're going to have a like ponytail down your back? Does
it
he have that?
It grows. It starts about 8 inches above my eyebrows.
Okay.
That's where my hair starts.
Sure.
So it's going to be real thin.
Yeah.
And nice. Down the back.
Nice. We haven't put it for quite a long time because it's been summer holiday time and.
Oh, we've been reading. We've been experiencing the world. We are back.
Yeah, planning lots of episodes.
Mate, we've got authors booked in. We've got 3 or 4 books in the pipeline. We've got waffle chats. Of just our own musings. It's almost. I might even press that button that makes it series 2.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
What button is that? Oh, on the anchor.
So it'll be like, what's the first series? First series was 146 episodes. And series 2 starts. Is it any different? No. Is it?
Let's just call it season 2.
Yeah.
And maybe a new logo.
No.
A new jingle.
No. Exactly the same.
What's new about the podcast? Absolutely.
There's a different number
if
you look into one bit of it.
Brilliant.
Oh, mate.
Brilliant. So, do you want to talk about any? Should we just talk about what we're talking about?
Can I talk about one of my minis?
Okay.
My mini
sure.
ones.
Which of the mental mini topics?
I've just been putting in
our
little repository of like, hey, here's an idea. The giggle response.
Oh yeah.
I really found that interesting. I was watching somebody who is like a gentle parenting advocate, and they were talking about how I know it sort of intuitively. They were talking about how like giggling is a stress response for children and adults like me, when it was like being overwhelmed and possibly in that position of being like told off, and the stress just comes out as a weird giggle. But the analogy that they used is also the flip side was like, you know how you cry when you're happy, and that is equally a like stress response. It's just a like pleasant. Well, not that it's a stress response, but that equally the action doesn't match how you're feeling. But obviously, crying when you're happy is sort of accepted and a bit of a like, oh, that shows you're so happy. Yeah. But you would never go, they were so upset they started giggling.
Laughing. Yeah.
But maybe it's just one of those things that they're like, having that little bit of that nugget of information means that the next time I come across someone giggling in a stressful situation, you might see it in a different way and go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's a thing. That's a stress response. Take note of that. I was saying to you earlier that that's definitely something that I have and got struggled with as a kid, because I can get told off loads, but when I did get told off, when something's really, the more serious something was, the more I would like grin and like laugh and like knowing that it was not helpful and that like
Yeah.
This is an inappropriate social response.
And you just can't stop.
Just can't stop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Very weird.
Yes, I know people who do that too.
Yeah.
In my family,
Oh, right.
who do it. Yeah.
Yeah. I can see how it's infuriating from the other side.
I know, especially if you're like
You want to
upset.
see some remorse.
I know. And if
Yeah.
you're upset and they're laughing at you being upset, that's really hard.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's quite a nice thing to think about, like educating other people as well, isn't it? Is to go like, actually,
Yeah.
I know you're infuriated. It looks like they're laughing, but actually they're not laughing at you. They feel so affected by what's happening that's why they're doing it. It's actually the opposite of what it appears to be. Yeah.
Yeah. Which does lead on to the main waffle topic. Because in the subject of times when I want people to feel remorse,
Yeah.
I pose to you a thing that is going on with my family, I'm struggling with, or on a journey with, that also applies to work, which is finding that line, or finding the balance, the understanding between, on one hand, understanding academically that breaking things is sometimes the result of exploration play, and that it is never done with malice, and that it is not done, that there is value in things being stress tested, and that destructive testing is part of the scientific method, and all these things, and I understand that. On the other hand, that urge, and the phrase I've started using in my home is that isn't built to be used like that, so it is probably going to break. And maybe once or twice I have said, we aren't rich enough for me to let you do that, to destructively play with that thing.
Yep.
And then that also carries, I think, into forest school work, where child-led, free play. Hey, you don't have to use you can use the shovel as a hammer if you want. You can use and then on the other hand, being like teaching respect for tools and operating a financially sound business that isn't hemorrhaging shovel money.
Yep. And I think that this topic can actually broaden out into kind of like resources in general, whether those be tools or toys or like craft resources and things. Because I've got some other thoughts that have been like bubbling away in my brain for quite a few years about use of resources and how people approach that. So yeah, like starting with this, like maybe something that ends in a destruction of a resource that maybe you weren't imagining was going to happen, or like a tool or a toy. So when this happens at home and you can see the players going in that direction, and you've said like it's not, what is usually the response? I'm really interested to hear like how your kids react to you saying those things. Are they like, oh, okay, cool, fair enough? Or are they frustrated, or do they carry on doing it without saying anything? Or
I think each individual one, because the way, and this is probably similar to the relationship I've had with kids who have that type of need to play like that in the woods, is like individually, because that declarative approach to stuff is like embedded into how I speak now.
Yeah.
So
do you want to just define that for anyone who doesn't know?
So that it's not like, stop, you have to do that, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong, or even requests of like, can you stop? Please, can you stop doing that? Can you sometimes I would say, please, can you stop doing that? Yeah. But the majority of what I would say is that declarative stuff. So it is that thing of, that's not built to be played with. That's not built to be used like that. So that middle bit isn't going to be strong enough to take your weight. And leave it like that. And the response to that is never from any child really, because it's declarative, because it's not shaming and whatever else. It's just a statement of fact. That is not designed.
And
to
that's
take
the
that
point
much
about
weight.
declarative language, isn't it? That then it's inviting the listener to then join the dots in their head to go, okay, they've said it's not built to be used like that, so maybe I should stop using it like that, or maybe I can suggest an alternative or whatever. So do your kids join those dots and then stop playing within that destructive way, usually?
Yeah.
Without any...
It would be very rare that they don't.
Yeah.
And I think also, part of the declarative thing is it because it keeps people out of their fight, flight, fawn, freeze.
Mm-hmm.
It keeps them out of that reptilian response thing because it's just declarative. It's just like, hey, that's not big enough. So there's never been an emotional pushback to that at work or at home.
Yep.
But I would say it's more of the journey I'm trying to work on is like cumulative. So individually, hey, that's not going to be strong enough to take your weight.
Mm-hmm.
Fine. 30 seconds later, that thing also isn't big enough to take your weight.
Yeah.
30 seconds later, that's actually going to smash this thing. And that's where the individually, that declarative response, and I'm talking about at home and at work now. Individually, those declarative interactions are not an issue. When they start to become, that's the only and we've had this conversation before where we've gone like, oh, actually the only interaction we're having with that person is telling them that they're going to break something. We need to assess that. We need to think about that.
Yeah, and I guess that's where your observations as a forest school practitioner come into play, where you're going, oh, I've noticed this pattern of interactions. Yeah. So therefore, something about our approach or the environment needs to be adapted to meet that person's needs better.
Yeah.
Because that's not okay, actually, that's the only experience that they have. And clearly, if they are not individually emotionally reacting to the declarative statements about that's going to break, even if they're not doing that, they are continuing in that same kind of vein of behaviour. So there is clearly an unmet need there.
Thanks to everybody that's rating and reviewing on Spotify and iTunes. It really helps us to find new listeners and share what we're doing with more and more people.
And trying to identify what that is, I think, can be really tricky with that kind of play or behaviour, because it could be such a number of things. It could be the exploratory sort of play that you're describing. It could be a kind of sensory feedback need. It could be something about the actual sensory experience of that particular interaction with that resource that they're really enjoying. So, for example, like hitting something really hard that to a kind of observer might look like they're trying to smash that thing. Actually, it's not about smashing the thing. It's about feeling the vibrations in their hand, for example, and that's what they need to do. Or it might be about the sound, or it might be about, testing, like stress testing the materials, like you're saying, and the effects, the cause and effect upon an item. And so those needs would have different kind of approaches, I think, in terms of what resources you might get out instead, or what kind of activities you might suggest or invite people to take part in.
Yeah, I think there's something there which is like, I can tease it out. It's like, I think the go-to visualization of like destructive play is that like gross motor, whacking, jumping, snapping, doing whatever. There is also a type of destructive stress testing which is slowly fiddling and taking this thing apart, undoing all the screws in this thing, moving this over here. What happens if I gently bend this thing? Which
picking the wax off of this candle.
Picking the wax off this thing. Like but just to, I think, broaden the visualization from like resources being broken. I don't want to speak for anyone else, but like my go-to thing is like, oh yeah, like I said, using a shovel as a hammer. But there is equally like, oh, I'm just seeing if I can peel the screen case off your phone. I'm just seeing if I can fit,
or the bark off of this bench.
I'm just picking the bark off this bench. I'm just we're seeing if we can like pull these screws out. And then
can I add on to that?
Yeah, go on.
As well as those kind of needs that I've just described in terms of sensory stuff. No, but it's interesting because this is like, what are our triggery buttons about play as well, which is also really interesting. And I think everyone benefits from spending some time there in that uncomfortable place and examining why we feel these things.
Spend enough time there, thank you. My hope is to spend less time
there. Because in addition to those kind of play needs, you might kind of have an umbrella about that, including sensory feedback and all that kind of thing. Are there also maybe sometimes some needs about attention and about testing out what is this adult's reaction going to be when I behave in this way, or I actually do have some emotional shit going on right now, and the way I'm getting that out of my body is to do this thing and to distract, which are all absolutely valid and possible. It might not just be from a kind of like innate sort of play need. Do you see what I mean?
That thing of like not all behaviour is communication. Sometimes it's just behaviour, or sometimes it's just sensory seeking, or sometimes it's...
Yeah. But sometimes it also could be, Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's something that is more challenging in groups that we've run with adults present because of the adult theatre element. And I don't mean that to like say, oh, adults make it harder. I just mean there's more to navigate if you're running a group, like when we run groups where it's us and maybe some volunteers, or you're in more of a place to go, oh, hey, this thing has these needs. I can declaratively say like, oh, the trees need that bark to do the thing. Trying to navigate that with more adults who are invested or feel responsible for someone's behaviour, or it's interesting. And I almost want to push the other way, in that I feel like sometimes I feel an onus for that, because so much of children's experiences are that thing of, that's going to break, this is not for children to play with, that's not a toy, all these things. Sometimes I want to go the other way and be like, okay, well, at Forest School, we're going to be the place where they can do that thing then.
Yeah.
We're going to facilitate that. And I will, I have in the past occasionally, I don't want to say pushed back, but, been counterculture, an advocate, and been like, oh, why can't we, do the obstacle course backwards? Why can't we...
Go back, climb up the slide.
Climb up the slide. And... Yeah. So that's very... The examples we've given there are not things that damage the resource. And I think that's where it's kind of... do you know what a great example is? We've got a woodworking...
Or hurt themselves. That's another thing, isn't it? Yeah.
The example I was going to give was so one of the tables in the woods... Excuse me.
Sneeze?
Don't know what it was.
Okay.
It was something...
An existential cry for help. One of the tables in the woods is full of nails. Is that what you're going to say?
Yeah. Because, and that's a really interesting example of we can let that table get full of nails, because the table being full of nails, as long as they're then whacked all the way down, doesn't present any risk. But it is sort of counterculture in terms of lots of people will see that and go no, we're only putting the nails in the piece of wood. No, we're only doing the thing. Or even just taking a hammer, one of these little stubby 4-inch children's hammers, and kids whacking the table. And some adults feeling who are involved being well, no, we don't hit the table, and kind of having that counterculture of going, well, let's unpick that. Is it actually a problem if they whack the table? And
putting it through that sieve of, is it hurting a person or a thing? Is it hurting the environment?
Yeah.
If it's not, don't worry about it.
Yeah. And that's...
But also there is the sieve of social acceptability and adults' role in helping children to navigate that and surviving in the world outside. And I think some adults who would be like, oh, no, we don't bash the table. Yeah. Even though it goes through the sieve is not the right phrase, but I hope you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean.
Sift it through and go, is it doing this? No, so it's okay. It goes through the flowchart. It goes through the sausage factory.
Welcome to the sessions.
Yes.
Put your children's behaviour through the sausage factory.
Exactly. My uni lecturer for my entrance interview for teaching PGCE. Yeah. I knocked on the door of his office because it was my turn for interview, and he said, "Welcome to the sausage factory." The first thing, and I was like, "Oh my god, what the heck? Of what is happening now?"
Well, what was happening? You can't just leave it like that.
He just meant I'm seeing person after person after person, and this is the flow chart, and you come through the thing, and then you've had the tour.
What did HR say?
Well, exactly.
That's horrendous.
But he turned out to be a complete legend. He's such a dude. So it's fine. I think it's just one of those things that you say.
Ah, yeah, you just let that go then.
You just say, and you're, That was weird. Oh, God. But probably that was the mark of him being an interesting person. He didn't mean anything by it. Anyway, what the hell did I get on that? Yeah, so somebody might go, no, bang the table isn't damaging the resources, because it isn't really. It's a toddler. They're not going to create, causing long-term damage to that thing. And it's not hurting any people or animals. And so it's fine. However, I can see the faces of the people around me are looking like, oh my God, that hurts my ears. And
Well, that's a different thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because then it is hurting someone else, so it wouldn't get through that sieve.
True.
That's
Okay.
where the sieve is very useful. The sausage
Okay,
doesn't get through the
okay.
sieve.
True.
No, listen, the sausages
But
can't
what
get
if you
through
did
the
put a
sieve.
sausage through a sieve? That would be great. Okay, no.
You're talking about mincemeat.
Yeah, but
That exists.
okay, but you've already made it. It was like that before. You're unsausaging the sausage. Anyhow, but
Scrap it. That's the tagline. Children of the forest.
unsausaging the sausage. Oh my God. Oh. No, but okay, right. So no one is around. The child is hitting the table with the hammer.
Yeah.
Nobody's wincing, going, my ears are
Got ya.
bleeding. No
Yes,
one's
yes,
doing
yes,
that.
yes.
Even the adult who's with the child isn't doing that, which is pretty amazing.
yeah.
But they are just there. They are ear defended up to the max. They're fine.
Okay.
But might they feel, do you know what? In terms of like just appearing like you're not mental, and because that is a lot of what social conditioning is.
I agree. Yeah, sorry.
It's like,
I shouldn't have
how
laughed.
do I make sure that my child,
Can mask.
yes,
can
basically, is like
socially
it
get
doesn't
through.
get the raised eyebrows, and they're like, and I think that's really interesting in terms of where we sit. If we're talking about kind of parent toddler groups, for example, that it's sort of allowing the behaviour that isn't doing anyone any harm, and also kind of encouraging a healthy response to it from other adults, so that instead of being judgmental about a particular child's chosen behaviour or activity, we're going to try and lower those raised eyebrows. Do you know what I mean? And we've definitely had conversations around that with some parents kind of going, oh no, they won't be allowed to do that when they're at school. They'll have to sit down and do the activity that's on offer. They're not allowed to just choose whatever they want to do. So you better start preparing them now. Oh no, I think your child's having real trouble with that. La la la. You know, and so I guess it's a two-way street in terms of like it's that thing about being permissive, isn't it? It's like being permissive, being a kind of negative response to certain types of behaviour that some other adults might say, oh no, that's too permissive, and that therefore you're doing maybe the children a disservice because you are letting them run wild in inverted commas, or doing whatever they want to do without any thought. And so that's at one end of the spectrum, and the other end of the spectrum would be, you will sit down and do the activity like we say, and you only use things in the proper way. And the halfway house being like, your needs are met and you feel that you're free to behave in the way you want to behave and play in the way you want to behave, but you're also able to kind of have open ears about consequences of maybe some of your behaviour. So like that might break, or we can't replace that, and being able to adapt your behaviour accordingly. And maybe that's the kind of learning journey of these moments of tension. If we never had these moments of tension, then the learning wouldn't be happening, would it? But it just feels weird when you're in that moment and you watch something and you're like, it's kind of inviting me to go and say something like that's going to break, or I'm not sure about that, or I'm worried. All those kind of starter sentences you could use, like I'm worried that
so
if
I think
we do that.
There's two parts to this. I think the stuff you've just described, I think there is also something wrapped up in there about masking, social accessibility stuff, and that for the vast majority of places that we go, aggression is not visible aggression is not to be tolerated or accepted, even if it is not resulting in a physical, like a breaking or a whatever. It is uncomfortable for lots of people to see someone else being angry, even if that angry is like tensing their body and shaking, right? That's not breaking a resource, that's not damaging, you're not hurting anyone, you're not shouting anyone. Just seeing someone be angry is uncomfortable for a lot of people. And myself included, that is like and the urge to like fix that, control that, squash that is part of, I think, what's wrapped up in this.
You will never need to go back to mundane marshmallows ever again. My book, Forest School Cooking, covers everything from how to build ovens to cooking in new and exciting ways, and a whole load of easy and amazing recipes that your groups will love. Order your copy today on Amazon.
Resource.
So are you
thing.
including kind of behaviour that might be like stamping, smashing, all that kind of thing, but without that emotion, without that anger emotion? Going back to that kind of like, it's just exploratory
that's what
play.
I think there's two different types of thing here.
Okay.
And then we have different, as adults, we have different responses to those two things. I think people would respond differently to someone stamping on a table in anger and stamping on a table singing "I love my new welly boots."
But really loud.
But they're doing the same damage to the table, but how you respond to that will be different because of how you're receiving that emotional information is different. And also the social expectations of like, oh, my child is stamping angrily on the table versus my child is singing a song on the stage. Same behaviour. The emotional difference is there. But do you still have it? So, and then I think there's another bit where you were going with these like leading sentences, which is like our roles, our responsibilities, the roles of the Forest School leader for your level 3 coursework, and how much or when you feel like one of your roles is to protect the resources for communal benefit.
Yeah.
So that's where you might then, I think, if it was something that you were like, this is a hammock and you are like about to take a pair of scissors to it, you might then go, I would go, I'm so sorry, I need to look after the hammock.
Yeah.
Because again, it's declarative, it's not about them. You go, I need to look after the hammock because this is something that we all use. And that's, so that, and I think that would be my scripting in a session.
Yeah.
It's then to take it into my other context, which is like my own children's things at home. It is theirs to break. Is it their thing? I mean, how freely did I give it as a gift? Did I give it as a gift? Did I give it as a resource? Did I, to what extent do you go, that is your, I'm picking stuff out of the air. This is not like, I'm not bringing up actual grievances, but that is your plastic sword. If you want to whack it into the patio and smash it, you are fully allowed to do that. Knowing as an adult with more emotional experience, you will be upset, you will be very distraught that thing,
that's the thing,
and then
isn't
I'm
it?
looking after you. Do I have to look after your emotional future?
Exactly.
At the expense?
Do I have to look after future you, either from the sadness that you feel in the moment for when it's smashed, or like in 3 weeks' time when you go, "Where's my sword? Oh no, it broke."
Yeah.
And where's the line of like, "Oh, it's all just learning experience. It's learning by doing." It's like natural consequences, but also just like so cruel.
As an idea.
So
I'm
cruel.
sorry.
I know. No, don't. I'm not saying it's good.
I don't like it.
It's that. Yeah, exactly that. It's like, how far are you willing to make a child feel really, really upset in the name of natural consequences? And that's going to be different for a lot of people, isn't it?
Do you think
I guess it's about having that conversation, isn't it? It's about, and it is declarative to say, I'm worried that if this continues, this will happen. And it could be, I'm worried that you might feel upset if it was broken, and for them to have a moment and go, no.
What you mean as just a check-in, like before we go any further, I just want to lay out what might happen so that we can make an informed choice.
Exactly that. And is it worth it?
And you would have to go for that conversation. I think you would have to go into that willing to hear.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you couldn't do that as a manipulative tool to be like, I'll get them to think about this.
Yeah, you're going to be
they'll
upset if you break that.
You have to be ready for them to be like,
exactly. And you can only do that if the resource is genuinely theirs. Whereas I think that thing,
or it's consumable, or it's like.
Well, I was just thinking about consumables, because a tricky moment for me a lot of the time, and something. So I think
consumable. I meant.
Easily replaceable, renewable.
Or renewable or something. I meant something, you know the word of it.
Can I drift on to consumable resources in groups?
Can I offer something slightly before? Because I think it leads into natural consequences and consumable resources, which is I was trying to think about whether in the woods, so not necessarily resources in terms of tools, but resources in terms of like building projects, play spaces, play constructions, swings, all these things, that there's some understanding with those sort of built things that they have a half-life. That the table that is full of nails is not supposed to last forever. It will be a community project to rebuild the table every 5 years, every 10 years. Or the fire pit, it's a different thing to, like, so our fire pit's like raised up and it's got cob and it's got clay and stuff. And like, if someone whacks it with a stick, I would respond very differently if we had like marbled the fire pit in and that was it. And, you know, but as it is, you might go, okay, if we do that loads, it's going to need replacing sooner. That's maybe something that is a bit different about doing forest school as opposed to the other end I can imagine would be like an indoor early years setting. Everything's been like laid out. All the resources are like very well cared for, and you might not have anything that you replace and rebuild in intervals because you're like, these are the resources. We're just going to keep these resources. They keep going. These are the resources for 3 to 4 year olds. If we don't break them, we don't have to buy anything next year. We don't break them, we don't have to buy anything the following year. We don't break them. Whereas in the woods, there's like natural attrition. You sort of accept, and maybe that's it. You like accept a higher level of like rough and tumble play, wear and tear on a lot of things.
And there's
in the
a lot
woods.
less washing. There is though, you know, like a lot of the resources they're designed to live outdoors and be dirty all the time, whereas a lot of the resources I think that other people might use will require, you know, it's like, it's fine that there's a
grasshopper.
There's a grasshopper, or it might be a cricket actually. I don't know the difference between a cricket and a grasshopper. I think it's a cricket. They might accept that, yeah, you can drive the toy tractor through the mud, but I am going to have to spend some time washing at the end of the day to do that.
Do you think forest
more
school
than we would?
Do you think forest school sites are more? Do you know the broken window fallacy?
Yes, I do.
Do you think forest schools are more at risk of the broken window? For people that don't know, the broken window fallacy is that thing. Was it an actual study?
I don't know.
It's like if there is a broken window in a space, people are more likely to litter, break another window.
Yeah. Because it's already trashed.
Because it's already trashed when you get there.
Yeah.
As opposed to something that looks pristine.
Do you know what I think? I think, and this, I've made some notes.
No.
Yeah, you
We're
do.
100 and something episodes in.
So, forest school is such a weird environment for most people.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it is. They go there and they're like, I actually can't get the measure of this place.
Okay.
It's such a weird space because learning what's expected and acceptable and just, you know, how you behave in this space, I think for some people takes a long time because in one way it looks trashed because it's just like bum and sticks for a lot of the time.
Sticks.
And that's just nature, right? Like that's however you lead your sessions or whatever you do with your space, it's going to look like bum and sticks at some point.
Yeah.
So therefore it looks just like, oh, well, it's trash already. So flipping trash it more, smash the thing. But it isn't because it is crafted by the practitioners in whatever way.
This is the acceptable level of bum and sticks.
Exactly.
Any more bum and sticks is wrong. Any less bum and sticks is not right.
Yeah, man. So that might look like a pile of old butthole, but actually that is the fire pit that took quite a long time to build with layers of sand and the logs and blah, blah, blah. But I know it looks like a pile of shit to you because it's just covered in mud and the mud is dripping down the sides and a bit of the sand is sprinkling out.
You don't know how fun it was to make, though. You don't know the empathy and the joy and the experiences that have gone in.
And so I can hang upside down on the thing. No one's telling me not to. And I can like wang this around and I can throw this, but not to that extent. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's why it's such an... And
it's not binary. In a lot of cases, it's very binary.
And the visual guidance isn't there. Like if you're in an indoor... We're so used to indoor spaces. Yeah. We're used to like a school, most people are used to a playgroup or whatever. And so you kind of visually, your brain goes, okay, this visually looks like this. It reminds me of this other place. this is how I behave, this is what I can do, what I can not do, without an adult even telling me what
Yeah.
the rules in
Yeah, yeah,
inverted
yeah.
commas are. You get to forest school, it's like some flipping weird halfway house of bum and sticks, nature, do whatever the hell you want, and actually very
Extreme empathy and
meticulously,
kindness and respect.
yeah, and
like,
meticulously crafted, thought about, considered play spaces.
that
Ours
look
is-
like bum and sticks.
that look like bum and sticks. So what are you supposed to do? Are you supposed to smash the place, or are you supposed to not? Like, and I think for some people, and if you think about learners we've had, especially people who've been for the first time, who are maybe a little bit older,
Yep.
maybe come to a holiday club for the first time, and then trying to find out where that weird flipping liminal, ephemeral boundary is about, like, okay, but what am I expected to do
Yeah.
here, and how much respect am I supposed to have? And that's another thing we haven't really talked about yet, but that is another kind of thing that you might hear, like an adult kind of guiding a child about how to behave in a certain way, would be about like respect for things,
Yeah.
and like when that is meaningful and when that's just a weird sentence that we've grown up with.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is
yeah,
just
yeah.
like, oh, you should respect the thing. Like, why? And I think what you said about, like, about the hammock.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I've got to look after the hammock because it's for everybody. And
Yeah.
even people that maybe you've never met before, but other people who come on different days. I think that is really key to it, because also I always have this like, and that's the learning. Do you know what I mean? Rather than just this weird, nebulous, meaningless respect for property, like,
Yeah.
because why? Especially in forest school, like I can see it if in a more human-made
Yeah.
space, respect for things is just a useful, socially acceptable quality to learn, isn't it? As a human in our society, that is a thing that we value, is respect for things. But also, I think it is. I think.
Yeah, but I'm going to throw a wrench in
Yeah.
that I think that is what's said, but I don't think that's what's conveyed. In that I think there is something about, like, we show respect to things is palatable, it is hard for anyone to argue against. It's like,
It doesn't make any sense.
it doesn't make any sense
because we throw so much crap away all the time. Our lives are so disposable.
Oh,
It's like
no.
if something breaks a lot of the time, or we don't like it anymore, we chuck it away. So respect for things as just quality, actually, I agree, it's like contradictory. But I think what you said about we're respecting the thing because it serves a community beyond you, that is a genuinely useful, socially useful and financially useful and emotionally useful
yeah.
idea to put across to people, I think.
It is definitely one of those times where I often feel like one of the best and worst things about forest school is we make these sort of things that could be easier for us as practitioners, and we choose not to do the easy. So the example here would be that, like, zero tolerance, that thing of like, I know loads of places where it's like, we don't throw. No throwing. We don't
or
throw
no running.
things.
We don't run.
Or no running. No, like those like zero tolerance things that are then easier to enforce on the part of a leader, on the part of someone who's responsible for safety and all those things. But they restrict learning. And it is that thing of then going, okay, so the rod I've made is that we're going to have this weird, wonky bum and sticks grey area. And because of that, I am going to need to have lots more conversations about what is respectful, or about what is breakable, or about what the implications of jumping on stuff, swinging off stuff, throwing things, picking that stuff up. Like, all those conversations are hard.
Yeah.
But way more constructive than, like, don't pick, we respect the things that are here. Don't hang on the hammocks, we respect the things that are here.
Don't touch the trees.
Don't touch the... I don't know if we've ever talked about this. We went to...
A place. We went to a place.
And
we saw a sign.
Everyone who was with us knows there was a big sign, and it was like... So it was not laminated, but like a banner. Like they made up a banner.
Yeah.
And it said, we always listen at forest school. We always wear the right clothes. And it said, a look, don't touch. And it had a picture of a tree in the middle.
Yeah.
And it lives in my head. There's
I
not a
know.
day that goes past that I don't genuinely think,
Yeah.
look, don't touch. Someone runs a forest school.
Yeah.
Sorry. But that would be...
I'm sure they know what they meant. They probably meant, look, don't touch the, I don't know, poisonous item that brings you out in a rash. The foxglove sap.
Right. But there's an example there of like, look, don't touch is an easy, high level, low intricacy.
Yeah.
Like
Not nuanced.
Not nuanced.
That's where the learning is, right? So if you have been at forest school for 20 million years as a kid and you've had all those conversations with people, your like spidey sense for what you can do and what you can't do is going to be so flipping amazing, isn't it? You're going to be so like...
Yeah, or you'll be broken and you won't be able to mask because you'll go into other places and go, why?
Oh, true, that's true.
So in terms of, just to take it back, if we're talking about this thing of like, prepare, and this is like, so the starting question was about like letting people break resources versus respecting the resources. And it feels like we're wandering into that thing, which is like, are you supposed to prepare people for the outside world or are you supposed to be a safe haven? And
both.
Yeah. But, okay, thanks. And so guys, thank you for listening.
I made some more notes. Do you want to finish that sentence or not? Have I just finished it for you?
No, you fucked it.
Okay. One of my notes was that it reminded me of It's Okay Not to Share. There is a bit in there about stuff being like, she doesn't use this phrase, but environmentally appropriate. So being able to go to your child, I know that we behave in such and such a way at this place, but at this other place, we're not going to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. And that's what I mean about it being nuanced is like, you know, being able to learn the difference about what's appropriate where, if possible. And my other note was that there is another element to this forest school thing and like watching somebody engage with resources in a way that might end up the resource getting broken. Yeah. Is that a lot of the stuff is personally made by you. Yeah. Or by me or whatever. Usually you if it's like a bigger thing. And then there's that level, or the kids. Or a kid that's not there anymore. And we are carrying this like community baggage, history that is like, I remember, you don't know how hard it was for that person to build that thing. And it took them months and like, and you have to unpeel all those layers and go like, but it doesn't mean anything to you. I know. It's just a like bench to you. And and in the same, I have to let it be a bench. I know, and in the same way, like this must have happened because otherwise it wouldn't have popped in my head. But I don't have personal memory of this. But for as an example, you decide that a group like shows some interest in making puppets, and you're like, okay, cool. The level at which they can engage with making puppets is maybe if I create quite a few blanks, like a spoon blank out of wood, and they can decorate those or use them. And actually, what they use them for is wanging them into the brambles. Yeah, and you're like, that might be really great for you. I spent like 3 hours making those spoon blanks. And how do you respond in that way? Like, do you preemptively get these resources out and go, these are my resources, but they're very precious because I spent time on them, so you must only use them in this way? Or in a kind of more like less harsh way of doing that?
Applications for Forest School leader training at Children of the Forest are now open. Come and learn with me and Wem at our private woodland down in Devon. Find out more by heading to myforestschooltraining.co.uk. See you there.
Could you group
or what
physical resources into freely given, conditionally given, not given, my bag? Could you lump things into those three? And then I guess, because freely given, in the example you're just talking about, would be that thing of like, if you're emotionally okay to just go, I've made these. Yeah. And like lots of people will talk a big game. We've all been there. You talk a big game about like, I don't mind where they go with this stuff. And then one kid is like, I'm going to poop on it. Yeah. I'm going to actually scrunch it. Or not just mine. I'm going to scrunch all of this up so no one else can do the activity. Yeah.
I'm sure we've all had that moment of like, ah! like that noise comes out and you can't, and then...
What excellent playing you're doing!
And it's like completely normal. Such a free spirit. so normal to have that personal response, especially because, we've made these resources. Sometimes you might make it, just not you, but one might make it because we've got a little unmet play need in there and we just really enjoy doing it. And we enjoyed making those things and we enjoy imagining where they might go with it. But it's really our play,
Like I've just made a load of cloaks.
Yeah.
And I think, if I'm being totally honest,
Yeah.
80% my own need.
Yeah. You just want to see them all wearing
I
cloaks.
just want to see
running around like hobbits
I
in
just
the
want to
woods.
make, but I really enjoyed making the cloaks. I
Yes.
learned how to do a bobbin.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
I
yeah,
could wind the bobbin.
Yeah.
Like I can do a bobbin on a sewing machine
Yeah.
and I can do it
Yeah.
anyway. But I have given those
yeah.
now.
Yeah.
If they get ripped and they fall apart, that is in my freely given
Is it?
thing.
Is it? What's your care package for when that happens?
What's my care package?
Yeah, like when you watch that happening and
Yeah.
you're like,
Okay, so this is
you're going to jump in your ice bucket. Lewis has
No.
got a new ice bucket.
this is relevant, and this is a thing that I think you and I have got better at doing, but I don't know whether we've done this consciously.
Mm.
We've never used these terms before of like freely given, conditionally given, not given. But in a setting like ours, where we are trading off resources, or sometimes like the spoon blank puppets thing,
Yeah.
right? If one of us has made those, but throughout the course of the day, the other one ends up leading that activity because one of us is, it's like, oh, I thought I was going to do spoon blanks, but actually I'm caught up in this game.
Yeah.
And then you come back and see the other person going like, they actually just wanted to like stick them in their ears, so we're sticking them in the ears. I'm so sorry. I hope that's okay. I thought that, and we talk each other down before we arrive. Like, look, I know you brought in all this wool for them to do the thing with, and just so you know, they're having an amazing time. Like we emotionally regulate each other to soften the blow. But that is really useful as a co-working strategy. To be able to go, I'm going to bring this resource in, but I am actually going to say that this is a conditionally given one.
Yeah.
This took me a really long time. I'm actually kind of emotionally invested. If they want to do it, if they want to use the instruments, I've only just glued those ukuleles back.
Yeah.
So maybe would it be all right if they, and like you and this is before the kids are there, like you and I having this conversation of like, actually at the moment that's sitting in my conditional bucket.
And I think that's actually okay to share with the kids a lot of the time as well, obviously depending on like where they're at. But to be able to say a bit like talking about when we play a certain type of game, and to say, to be honest with them, going, do you know what, I'm feeling a bit like this today, and so I'm feeling like I'm not gonna do well with playing that kind of game. To be honest and say like, we can play with these for sure, just to let you know though, it took me hours and I spent quite a lot of money on glue.
Upset.
But you have,
I
don't think it's without shame and judgment, isn't it? It's just trying to
do
do it without any shame or judgment, and I think that kind of applies as like a wash over everything we've said. It's like a kind of being able to kind of, even if someone is doing something that you have to stop, trying to do it in a kind of like, oh cool, like you completely didn't know this, but I just need to let you know that
and also
I've got to look after that thing, I can't allow you to do it.
And some of this is to do with our both I would say I do this at home, but also at work. We are not high status top down behavior. I slapped my foot really hard. We don't have that role, so when we might express like, this took me a really long time to make, or I need to look after the hammocks, the recipient is very rarely seeing us as like, the head teacher has come in and told me that
now I'm too scared to even use it, and I'm not going to touch it, and no thanks, bye.
Yeah. It's because it's declarative, because it's said from that like place of like, hey, here's my own emotional needs, or here's that lands very differently to being like, no, you won't be able to come back if you can't use the hammers properly. Which we never say, but I'm just
Then I was just thinking about times where we might make a decision either without telling the kids or with telling the kids about like withdrawing access to something because it's not being used in a way that's acceptable for whatever reason. And I don't mean in a kind of like, if obviously we would never do, if you carry on using it like that, we're going to take it away and you can't use it. But there might be times where, I don't know, like the fire strikers that we use, actually they're not being used in a way that's safe. We've repeated like how we're going to use them in a safe way, and some people aren't able to adhere to that right now, so we're not actually going to get them out now. And I'm trying to think if there's any other times like that where we might have kind of made a decision about, because that's the other route through this, isn't it? It's like having conversation, explaining in a declarative way what the results of this action might be, and whether therefore they are allowed to continue the action, or whether not. There's definitely times where we've gone kind of emotions and mood wise, it isn't right to get this resource out right now because it's going to make people feel upset, or they're not emotionally in a good place for this thing, like the scramble nets and things like that, which can sometimes create quite heightened emotions.
There's I think we rarely have, it would have been years and years since we've gone, we're going to have to put this away now because it's not going well, right?
Yeah.
What we might adjust is, fire strikers is a really good example, so I'm going to run with that idea. What we might adjust is the number of fire strikers that we feel comfortable having out right now. This, someone is doing something, or someone's emotional state or whatever, means that we might then be making an adjustment in our head and go, this needs to be 1-to-1. In order to keep, if just from a resource, like we take everything out and we're just from a resource out, like in order to keep that resource safe, I need to be on a 1-to-1 or a 1-to-2 with this thing. So fire strikers think I would be surreptitiously putting extra fire strikers in my pocket and then going, I've only got 2 out at the moment while my pocket fucking jingles, and go, that's what I can do at the moment. So to avoid any shame of like, actually, do you know what? This person's not behaving well, and so they need more of it. I would find a white lie, perhaps, that. But that's not a white lie to say this is how many I feel comfortable with right now.
No, it's
I
not.
wouldn't be like, oh, I don't know where the other ones are. Oh, what a mystery.
Yeah.
It would just be like, oh, I'm comfortable having 2 at the moment.
Yeah,
That's
and
what I feel
sometimes
like I
that
can
might
do.
need repeating quite a few times, I find. It's like, oh, we're just going to use 2 at the moment.
Yeah.
I want my own one. We're just going to use 2.
Yeah.
Just for now, we're just going to use 2.
I've only got the space to do.
Yeah.
I've only
Yeah.
like, so I think that's where we would, or maybe just go, let's not make that visible. Like, scramble nets is a good example where we might go, let's not put it on the board. If it comes up, we can have a discussion about this, or we can do whatever. But if it doesn't come up, let's not make it a thing. Let's just...
Yeah.
And it's out of sight, so nobody walks past and goes like, oh yeah, the scramble net, let's get that up.
And there might be times where somebody might request something and we make a kind of, I'm going to call it a risk assessment, because it's like a dynamic risk assessment, even if I'm just thinking about like emotions, or I'm going, oh, right, what time is it? That would mean the resource would be out for 7 minutes, and then the emotional fallout from having to put it away, that kind of risk assessment, I mean. That somebody asks for something, and sometimes I think we would be honest about our thought process there, and we'd pause and like work it through like in front of them and go, oh, I'm just looking at the clock and I'm actually thinking,
By the time we get that out,
by the time we get
2 or 3 minutes,
yeah. And then sometimes we wouldn't do that publicly because that might make somebody feel shame or judgment. So, I'm just thinking about little Bobby Blue and how he's quite upset today. And if he goes on the net, he might have a meltdown and so on. Therefore, I'm not going to do that. That would not be appropriate. So there might be some other white lies in inverted commas that might be a little, just like a,
Yeah. Do you think we have ever... I'm sure we have, I just can't think of a specific example. Been in a scenario where somebody, for social and emotional reasons, needs a win. So like I was going back to at the top of this podcast where I was like, you realise that like more than half your conversations with a certain person might be about like correcting their behaviour, declaratively correcting their behaviour, and you can feel that they are near the edge of what they are able to handle, and then they ask for a resource that is going to need more of those comments from you. It's going to need you to be like, we've got some little mini pickaxes.
Yeah.
They're, little half-sized diggy ones, and there are sometimes where someone is like, they've already been, we've kind of had conversations about like maybe the hammocks or the other, and they're like, I just want to go digging, and you're like, we go digging, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna need to, you're not going to get a win out of this. And you haven't got it in you right now to do this collaboratively between me and you.
Yeah. I do, and I think we've wandered into this thorny area right now of like the kind of minute to minute decisions and judgment calls that we make as practitioners all the time, and this is why this job is so exhausting. Like anyone who goes from the outside, that job just must be just so lush. You're just playing with kids outside, like even on a beautiful sunny day in the woods where it is. Those are the kind of decisions you're making all the blinking time, and that's why it's so exhausting. Partly, don't you think? Because all of that is like in the background.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. And that is, but you're doing that whilst also keeping half an eye on the people over there doing that thing. And this is why I don't think you can do it. I think it must be so hard to constantly be doing short-term provision because everything we've described, every conversation we've talked about in the last however long we've been chatting is like
too long.
Is easier in a long-term setting, and easier to get to know the person, or to get to to go, well, we've got time for that next time, or let's work up to that, and that is extra knackering if you're also trying to get a read on people and you're not familiar with each other, and that is.
Do you know what?
Super tough.
I've still got loads more to say, but I think it needs to be a part 2.
Yeah.
Can we do a resources part 2 in a minute, which is going to be slightly more about like, I want to talk about using all of something.
Consumable resources.
Yeah, and all that kind of stuff. Can we do that?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Before we go, massive thank you to everyone. I don't have the Patreon list in front of me.
No.
Oh, no. Do you know what? Here we go. Look, I'm going to go home and I'm going to record it. I'm going to put it in right now. So thank you to...
Rosie and Rosie, Julie and Rachel, Emma, Candice, Sarah and Claire, Heidi, Louise, Michael and Anna.
Wow! What a great list, Lewis. You read that out perfectly. And the song was excellent. I can't believe the song. I'm gonna slightly put you on the spot.
Are you?
Yeah.
Why?
Because I'm going to say that in the next, not this next part that we're going to do, but the one afterwards, I've already got a song for Song Wars.
Have you? Oh, is it the one I've heard? Or is this a new one?
I've got a song about Wet Rope.
Oh, okay, great. Okay.
You do not have a song yet.
No, I've started a song twice and not been happy with it and given up.
We will record Resources Part 2.
Okay, cool.
There may well be a Song Wars.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Lush.
Bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.